lawfully selling to minors. New Restore Act funding is expanding oyster shell recycling efforts along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, turning discarded shells from local restaurants into tools for shoreline protection and habitat restoration. Raylan Ladner shows us how tens of thousands of pounds of shells are already being put back to work.
We've put about 72,000 pounds of shell back into the water, and we've collected about 300,000 pounds at this point.
That progress is part of the Save Our Shells initiative, which is getting a $553,000 boost to expand across 3 coastal counties.
Yeah, shells are a really important part of the ecosystem. They provide a surface area for new oysters to grow on, but they're also habitat for marine life like fish and invertebrates. So by collecting those shells that otherwise would have gone to a landfill, we're able to put them back into the water where they can be used as habitat for some of our natural resources.
These yellow bags behind me hold approximately 32,000 pounds of recycled oyster shells. These shells were donated by 14 different restaurants across the Mississippi Gulf Coast, all participating in the Save Our Shells program. Those shells are now being used in restoration projects, including a living shoreline at the University of Southern Mississippi's Gulf Coast Research Laboratory.
We're really excited about this partnership between GCRL and the Nature Conservancy with their Save Our Shells program. We have a project funded by the Tidelands program to create a living shoreline at GCRL's Marine Education Center, really to mitigate some erosion that we have there, and we'll be using these shells along with marsh plants to create that living shoreline.
Shell recycling helps rebuild habitats that once naturally existed, creating surfaces for new oysters to grow and providing shelter for fish and other marine life. The latest Restore Act funding builds on an earlier award, allowing the program to expand shell collection, transportation, and deployment.
We would definitely like more restaurants to participate in the program, and we're also looking to work with aquaculture farmers as well to collect some of their discards to put those back into the environment.
Once complete, the living shoreline will also serve as an outdoor classroom.
It really is a really big investment, and really thinking about how we can educate the next generation and really show them how a living shoreline works in action.
With this program, your next oyster feast could help protect Mississippi's coastal future. In Ocean Springs, Raylan Ladner, WLOX News Now.
You can stay updated on the Nature Conservancy of Mississippi's Facebook page. The University